Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to learn about design patterns. So, what are design patterns? Well, design patterns are the reoccurring solutions that solve a lot of our design problems that we always have the solution for. And these are kind of like your standard reference points as a designer. That can mean like infinite scrolls that just keep loading. That can mean also like breadcrumbs. And these are a few examples of design patterns that we're all kind of familiar with. Now, if you're designing a new product, you'll want to figure out the easiest way that users can interact with it. So let's think of something that we always do, login and registration. Now, we always ask people to sign up, sign in, log in, and log out. And each of us use numerous web and mobile applications on a daily basis. And I think we can all agree that constantly re-entering your name like over here or your password over and over again, it's tiresome. So like this completely tiresome to constantly enter your email, your name, your username, your password. And there are design patterns that solve that. So we can usually use like a pattern like this where there's like a social login or there is some kind of like remember me. These are design patterns. Now, the first step is finding the problem. So users understandably are short on time and patience from having to complete like small tasks repeatedly to access their information or get their work accomplished. So in this case, our problem is that users want to sign in quickly. Now, we often try to find ways to eliminate that pain point. That's the next step is like the solution. So we want to find ways to eliminate or at least diminish this pain point for them. So over here, a solution could be like social login, like I mentioned before, or having like a remember me checkbox. So those are ways that you can kind of solve that issue that we're all very familiar with. Now, there is no need to recreate the wheel every single time. Although we could design our own solution to the problem, several useful solutions have already been designed in the past and they're proven to be effective. So there's no need for you to go out there and kind of retry or redesign something like that over and over again to get like a different result when there's no need to. So for example, like I mentioned before, some sites like have the ability to allow users to sign in using social media. Others sometimes don't even ask users to sign in until they really need to. And others save the user's data and kind of pre-populate that within the sign-in fields. So there are different ways that we can actually solve for this without necessarily having to do extra work. Now let's talk about the categories of patterns. So there are 6 categories of design patterns. And this kind of changes based off of people's ideas of what design patterns are. And I mean, there's no like one truth, but these are the 6 categories that I usually follow. So the first one is data input. So over here we have like a kind of like a drag and drop. That is considered like a data and input category. And these patterns handle data input and feedback that a product gives in response to the data it receives. The second one is content structuring. So these patterns streamline the overall kind of flow of our user experience and they ensure accessibility of all page elements. So users feel confident while they're browsing your product. So that can mean like just natural flow of the page, allowing users to have that really accessible and easy flow and just the way you kind of structure your content. So over here, like just the different options and how it's neatly structured is one way that we kind of find design patterns. Another one is navigation. So these patterns ensure like effortless navigation through your product. So like over here, we have an example of just a sidebar navigation. That is one design pattern. There are many different types of navigation design patterns. And so they're just kind of structured, and we can go much deeper into what navigation necessarily means and how to have an effective navigation. Next is incentivization. So these patterns kind of push your users to perform certain actions, with rewards or successfully completed actions. One thing that comes to mind that I think of is like workout-based applications where they reward users based off of things that they complete or games. So these are different types of ways to kind of include those design patterns. And those are the types of scenarios that you would necessarily see them in. Hierarchy. So these patterns help you craft a visual hierarchy so you can easily distinguish primary elements. So over here we have like primary buttons, secondary buttons, even just like elements in terms of like what is selected and how things are kind of laid out on the page. So a bunch of different types of design patterns for that as well. And I will link a resource for different types of design patterns. It's uipatterns.com, I believe. And that is a great place to see all the different types of patterns and different types of categories that you can kind of dig into. And the last one is social media. So these are patterns that kind of encourage users to share and interact with others online. So that could be like links, that could be just like share buttons or reply buttons. I mean, there's different ways that users can interact through social media. Like tags, I would say, are kind of a part of that as well. So there are a bunch of different types of design patterns in relation to social media. And that's it for our categories on design patterns. So people often ask, like, why are design patterns valuable? Well, I mean, they solve a lot of the problems that we have the solution for. So people will naturally look for patterns. I mean, this is huge. People are always looking for patterns. So when we think about when we arrive on a product, we have a good understanding of how things will work. We often think we already know where to click. I mean, this is based on all our prior experiences dealing with other applications and the solutions that they've used. So you wouldn't necessarily go out there and create like an entirely new design pattern for something that is kind of mainstream. When sites incorporate known patterns, users often have an easier time getting where they're going or accomplishing their goals. Some would argue that if we all use design patterns, our sites may look cookie cutter like. But most designers will agree that there are significant benefits to following established patterns. And then, you can tweak them a tiny bit, which could be to match like your style and your design system. But the benefit would be to provide a more delightful user experience for your users. Using standard design patterns reduces cognitive strain. So if people are already familiar with how like objects on the interface will act, it kind of saves them the time from thinking about what they should be doing or what they should be doing next. Reducing the need for people to actually think is so important if you'd like to keep them as users. Also, I mean, designers also benefit from using patterns. It saves us from constantly having to reinvent the wheel, like I mentioned before. Engineers have kind of known this for a long time. They kind of have like these large repositories or open source code that have like large components and they kind of can recycle them themselves. It really depends on how they build their applications. But rewriting similar code from scratch is going to take them way longer than necessarily copy and pasting and tweaking. So designers who use design patterns can free up time for creating and tweaking, which is kind of like the really fun part. And that's why they're so valuable. Okay, you may be asking some really good questions right now, like, Daniel, how do I actually apply these design patterns? Is there like a process? Well, of course there's a process, and I'm going to teach you that right now. So there are so many design pattern libraries out there, but I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go through every single library and just like start picking out all these different types of design patterns and applying all of them. Don't do that. Now, there are solutions to usability problems, and if you don't have a usability problem, then you shouldn't necessarily apply some sort of solution where it doesn't need to be. But I'll tell you the proper way to actually assess if you need to choose a certain design pattern and what that process looks like. So step number 1, you need to have some sort of problem. So figure out the problems that actually require the solutions. Step number 2, analyze other products that have found a solution. So that means just kind of go and find similar websites, similar products to yours that have a solution to your problem. It could be similar to yours. It could be almost the same. It could have slight variants. It could be entirely different, but take a look at what your competitors are doing. Once we've examined how other products actually implement these solutions, or once we've taken a look at what products actually do, we need to actually analyze that efficiency of that solution. So take a look in more depth on how each product actually works. Like, is it going to be a good fit for your product? Is it working for them? I mean, it's just take a deeper look at exactly what those people are doing. And then once you've kind of chosen a pattern, analyze those patterns and decide which one is right for you and your problem. So, I mean, that could mean that you found a certain pattern that you like and you dig deeper to see other similar products that have that pattern, and you can decide, which variant would help you better. So, step number 1 is to kind of detect those types of issues, but you should be doing that with actual data. Now, you can detect that with things like user interviews. It could be with like data from something like Amplitude that tracks like user inputs and drop-off rates and stuff like that. Mixed panels, another one. But you should always make your decisions based off of that instead of making it based off of assumptions. Now, let's take a step back and let's come up with an example. So say we have an e-commerce site with a very high bounce rate. Now, we've checked like our mixed panel or Amplitude, and we found that people are dropping off right at checkout. That's where the big bounce rate is from. And based off of some feedback from users, we have a really long sign-up form and sign-up wall right at the end. And we think that's where the problem lies. So step 1 is pretty much done here. We have our problem and it's very clear, and we can kind of proceed to the next stage. And that next stage is to analyze similar websites. So the first step is, visiting all those different websites or products. So in our case, it's going to be websites, and they need to be similar to yours. And we're going to analyze their approaches to solving this issue. So we have Amazon here. So this is Amazon.ca, and their solution is a sign-up wall similar to ours. It's not a long form, it's a very short form, but it's a similar sign-up wall before actually purchasing a product. We're going to get into the actual efficiency of that later. Now, the second option we have here is eBay. Now, eBay has something similar. There is a guest purchased at the end. Users can easily check out with PayPal, and PayPal has your shipping address most likely. That's another design pattern that we can use, like a guest checkout instead of having people actually sign in. So we'll take a look at the efficiency of that later. And then we have Etsy. Now, Etsy has a social login if you don't want to actually sign up. So we can have people actually sign in easily through social media, and a lot of people actually have social media. So we'll take a look at that efficiency as well in the next section. So these are 3 different design patterns, and we don't necessarily need to use every single one of them, but we're going to figure out which one is going to be right for us. So I'm going to jump into Google Chrome to take a look at all these different websites, and we can go through the efficiency of each and every pattern. We're on to step number 3, and over here we are on Amazon.ca. Now, during this step, we're going to analyze the efficiency of each pattern and find out which pattern matches our product's needs. So in our example, our website abandonment during checkout is a big problem. Therefore, our goal is to pick a pattern that will help us retain users and help them actually complete orders. So let's take a look at this. So we have Amazon.ca, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select an item, and I'm going to select buy now. And you can see it just kind of autofills to my address if I want to sign in, but it also won't allow me to actually purchase the product without actually creating an Amazon account. So you'll need to enter your name, your email, your password, and your password again. So this probably works for a company as big as Amazon because they have such a huge following, they have so many different products. But if our company or a product, if it doesn't have as many products or as big as a following, I'm not sure if people would be that dedicated to actually do something similar. And that's probably why we have the drop-off rate to begin with. So I'm not sure this is a type of pattern that we should be using, at least at this moment. So let's move on to eBay. So here's ebay.ca. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select a product. Here we go. So what else do we have here? Okay, so let's pick a video game. So we have a video game over here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to click buy it now. So interesting, they're popping up a quick modal that will actually allow you to purchase some sort of protection plan. Oh, here it is. So now I can see whether I want to sign in to checkout or I can check out as a guest. Let's see what that looks like when we check out as a guest. So this is very interesting. We can select all our different options. We can actually put in our shipping address if we want to check out as guest, but we can also pay with PayPal. So that's very interesting as well. So it looks like our PayPal is an option, and I'm not sure if this pattern is going to be good for us, but maybe if we look at like PayPal and allowing people to actually click PayPal and fill in their address, that could work. I mean, we could possibly create an account around that. Let's take a look at Etsy. So Etsy is this handcrafted kind of like commerce store. You'll get a lot of like handmade goods. Let's shop custom jewelry over here. Okay, I'm just gonna pick something random. Okay, so we have a chain necklace. Open up a new tab for us. And we're just going to select a style and add it to our basket. Okay, so it brought us right into our shopping cart, which is really nice. So if we want to proceed to checkout, we can already over here see like we can pay by PayPal, which is very convenient. You can do that really quickly. Let's see what checkout has. Okay, so we can continue as a guest, or we can sign in and register, or we can actually have a social login. So I kind of like this. I like how they've made this much more prominent than the actual sign-in. So it's easier for users to actually do something like this rather than, going through a whole sign-in or sign up. So what happens if you continue as a guest? So you have to enter your delivery address. And I guess this is where this gets a little bit harder for users and longer for users because they'll have to keep on doing this. So if we go back, so my guess is it's much more easier to actually do a social login over here. So very easy to kind of go through this flow. You have a multitude of options, and I think this is something that I want to further analyze as well. So if we take a look at the patterns that we've just kind of reviewed very quickly, I mean, there are notable differences. So for example, Amazon had that sign-in wall. I'm not sure, like we're already kind of doing that, and I don't think that's going to be good for us. There was the PayPal like guest checkout, which is very interesting. There's different variations of that. So it's kind of like a lazy sign up as well as like a continue as a guest, which is very interesting. But the problem is not all users have a PayPal account, and doing that kind of lazy sign up requires like them to go back and enter their shipping address over and over again. I feel like social login is incredibly fast and a convenient way to actually sign in. So most internet users have accounts on popular social media platforms like Google, Facebook, and even people on Apple devices. This lets users fill in the absolute minimum of information and quickly proceed to checkout. So let's say we picked social login to simplify our checkout process and to retain users. So the final step for us would be to look at similar websites that kind of employ social login. So I'm going to be taking a look at CB2 or Crate and Barrel next, because I believe they have a social login as well. So in the next section, we're going to be dissecting the pattern. Welcome back. So we are on step 4, which is dissecting that pattern. Now the last step, like I said, dissect the pattern. In other words, we need to analyze other websites that use social login. And basically we can use that to customize or modify the pattern for our needs. Let's take a look over here. So we have Etsy again, and I'm just going to add another item to our cart. What do I need to do here? Let's actually pick another item. Okay. Let's just pick a quick item here. Perfect. So we're just going to pick that. Okay. So we're going to add that to our basket. And I really like how it pushes us right to checkout really quickly. I kind of really like the PayPal and how that's very upfront. So for users that do have PayPal. So I really like that about this type of checkout process. So if we pay with PayPal, we can automatically jump right in. But if we don't want to do that, and if users don't have the account, which is very convenient, So if they want to use something like American Express, Visa, or MasterCard, they can just go proceed to checkout and they're right here. And the great thing is they are automatically hovered over, or like the input for the sign in is automatically in focus, which is great. But the primary action is to continue as a guest or to log in socially, which is really, really great. I think this kind of gives you the best of both worlds. It gives you the ability to use PayPal and just check out quickly with that. But also it gives you the ability to check out as a guest, sign in if you do have an account really easily, and also potentially sign in or sign up with a social media platform. So I think this is a really, really strong design pattern that they've built and they've kind of modified a bit. Let's take a look at CB2. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick something. Here we got some very, very overpriced furniture. Okay, so I'm gonna pick this lovely sofa. I'm gonna add that to my cart. And that's really nice. It brings it right up so I can kind of continue shopping or check out now. I like that better than how Etsy just throws you right into the checkout page. I don't know if I'm going to be done shopping, and I don't like how they kind of redirected me right to that shopping basket over here. So they allow you to kind of keep shopping and go back, but this allows you to kind of keep your process or your scroll position on the page. If I just remove this. So, and it's really easy to kind of get back. So I kind of like that implementation. So let's take a look at our cart over here, and they have something very similar actually. They have the ability to check out with PayPal right away. I like that. They allow you to apply a promotional code right off the bat. And if I want to click checkout now, this is very interesting. So they kind of have a sidebar with the guest checkout, the returning customers section, and this is actually very similar, and signing in with Google. Sign in and check out. So they have something very similar, but they're limited the options to just Google here, which I think I'm not sure if that's the best pattern to use, but it may work. So let's take a look at guest checkout. So yeah, checkout is a 3-step process. I do like how they've handled this though. So they allow you to see what that process looks like. You're gonna have to enter shipping and gift options. So your name, your street address, in Canada would be your postal code, town, city, province, and phone number. And like I said, when users go through your guest checkout, they're gonna have to constantly do that process over again. So I don't think that's the smartest way. They do have PayPal, so you can click PayPal and then just automatically check out through there. And like I said, they do have, so this is very interesting. So if I click checkout now, again, it's bringing me to guest checkout and it won't let me go back, which is very interesting. So I think I'm personally going to stick with the Etsy pattern. I'm going to tweak it for my visual style, but I think I like the idea of giving them the upfront ability to distinguish how they plan to pay and how they want to sign out. Because if they have a PayPal account, everything's kind of handled for you in one shot. But if they don't, they give you 3 other options. So that's essentially how I dissect the patterns. I take a look at very similar options. I take a look at options that do employ something like a social login, especially for e-commerce or something like this. So in this case, I took a look at CB2 Canada, and I found that, they are very similar, but this one behaves much differently than Etsy's. And for that reason, I would probably follow Etsy's, and, I can keep something from CB2 here. When you add something to the cart, it doesn't necessarily take a full screen and put you in a cart screen, but I can take a look and analyze if each pattern, which one is going to be best for my needs. So when you're trying to find a design pattern, go through that same process, figure out what your problem is, figure out the different types of websites that are your competitors that are very similar to you, that have some sort of pattern that solve the similar issue. Step 3, jump right in and figure out which pattern is going to be right for you. And then dig a little bit deeper and find websites that all employ that kind of similar pattern that you actually think is best for you, and figure out which one is going to be best. And that's how you pick a design pattern.